What's going on in the job market so far this year? That's the question I've been asked by numerous people at recent events that I've attended. So as we approach the middle of March, it's time to look at what's going on in the world of digital procurement and supply chain, with particular focus on the hiring trends. And what we're going to talk about is actually equally applicable in both Europe and North America, our two main markets, because we're seeing very, very similar characteristics on both sides of the Atlantic. So we're going to talk about four things. We're going to talk about demand, i.e. the availability of jobs in the sector; supply, the availability of good people. We'll look at the impact of that supply and demand equation on salaries. And then we'll talk about a particular problem that we're seeing a lot of organisations make, one that we've been asked to fix on several occasions recently, that I think is avoidable, and we can give some advice to people to help them avoid these sorts of problems. So we'll come to that last. Okay, demand, where are we? Well, it's been a relatively quiet start to the year so far, in keeping with what we saw at the end of last year. Why is that? Well, if you look at the really big established names, the growth of which has historically driven a lot of the demand in the marketplace, they're all relatively quiet from a hiring perspective at the moment. We're not seeing lots of activity from them. And that takes out a lot of the heat out of the market. So the demand is mainly coming so far from startups and scale-ups who are cautiously growing, and I emphasise that word cautiously for reasons that I'll come back to. They're cautiously growing at the moment, and that's understandable because of the economic climate, because of the market conditions in the procurement and supply chain people are selling into, but also critically the funding markets as well. And so when I talk about cautious hiring, what do I mean? Well, if you look at the organisations that we work with that are startups and scale-ups, they're really relying on us to scour the entire market, to present to them a range of options. A really senior experienced person who might cost one level of salary, a less experienced person who might cost a bit less, and really look at the various different choices available to them. And relying on us to sort of help them understand the suitability in terms of a cultural fit, their stage of the career trajectory, their affordability, the background of the people, and where they've come from, and what challenges they might have experienced in the organisations they've worked in previously. So all that background intelligence is enabling people to make more informed hiring decisions that they feel more comfortable and confident making those choices. Of course, the alternative, which we're also seeing an awful lot of, is companies going directly to market themselves, wanting to avoid paying fees to the likes of us. And I see this as well. We've got a lot of network across other recruiters who work in different markets who are seeing very similar behaviours themselves. So companies trying to avoid paying recruitment fees, advertising, networking, paying referral fees to team members to get friends and friends of friends. And that's okay to a degree, but as we'll come to, it creates certain problems. And part of that is because of the nature of the supply at the moment. So as we look at the second point, the supply of candidates on the marketplace. So there are undoubtedly some very, very good people on the job market at the moment in the world of digital procurement and supply chain. Most of those people in the job market through no fault of their own, because of the circumstances in their most recent or their current employer. And so they're actively on the job market looking for new roles, and there's some excellent people that could be taken very quickly if the right job comes up. There's also a whole raft of people that, for one reason or another, the CVs are, if you're being kind, a little bit patchy. They've jumped around a bit, they've been in the wrong job or the wrong organisation, and they've started to move around quite a bit, and the CVs don't look great at first glance. And these are the people that are struggling to get back into roles that meet with their personal expectations. These are also the people that are applying to all sorts of adverts. When clients say to us, we advertise the role and we got a lot of unsuitable applicants, these are the people that companies are talking about. And so those are the choices that are often available to people through the advertised market. But ultimately, there is a third group of people in this supply that are important. And that's what we in recruitment call the passive job seekers. So you've got those active on the market, you've got those who are increasingly desperate, quite frankly, to get back into new roles. And then you've got the sort of people that come up to me at an event and say, Andrew, can we have a quiet chat next week when we're not surrounded by all these people? And we'll jump on a call and we'll talk about the fact that they're not actively seeking a new role. They're not in any great rush, but they've got some long-term concerns about funding or security or go-to-market. That means that if the right thing came up, they'd be very interested to have that conversation. And they'll typically outline that criteria to myself or my colleagues or other recruiters who do the same sorts of work we do. And so that we're then armed with that. So if a client calls and says, I'm looking for this particular profile, we can then tap into that pool of passive job seekers. And that's where a lot of our appointments come from, the people who just the right role at the right time with the right organisation. And that's what working with people like ourselves and other credible specialist recruiters gives us. But that's what a lot of the organisations that are keen to avoid a recruitment fee are missing out on. Okay, So that's supply and demand. What does that mean for salaries? Well, good news if you're an employer, good news if you're a budget holder, that actually all the heat has gone out of the salary inflation in the marketplace. There's actually data out this week from KPMG and the REC, or the recruitment bodies, saying that in the UK, salary growth is its softest for 3 years. But I'll go a stage further than that. I'll say that if you move jobs in 2021 or 22 in what was a very, very good job market for candidates, and you're now trying to get back into a role of a similar level, you're going to have a hard time finding the same sort of salary as you were getting paid a couple of years ago. And that's because there are less roles out there are more people in the job market, but critically, those excesses where people are throwing all sorts of silly money around for salaries in such a demand-driven marketplace, that those salaries just aren't available at the moment, which means for the job seekers, you're having to face the unpalatable truth that you might not be worth what you thought you were worth in the job market. So that's what we're seeing at the moment, and I don't see that changing this side of the summer holidays. It might improve in the third quarter, we shall see. Okay, so pulling all that together, I mentioned a mistake we're seeing a lot of organisations make, and this is to do with startups and scale-ups, and it does frustrate me because it's a frustration for our business as well, because it's companies that are doing all they can to avoid using recruiters because they don't see the value. But critically, it's the problem it's created for themselves that I want to highlight. So you might think, okay, we've hired somebody, we've not paid a recruitment fee, we've avoided that cost. But if you make a bad hire, we all know the cost of a bad hire. You've got the actual salary you paid the person while they're with you, but it's the impact on customers or prospects or internal progress or team morale or colleagues that is the hidden cost of a bad hire. And so if that person's with you for 12 months, they're setting you back a year, and they've got all those issues, and then you've got the cost of replacing them. And so we're seeing a lot of organisations suffer from quite high staff turnover because they're making poor hires. And while they're doing that, well, they're restricting themselves to the advertised market and to people that they're hiring because they meet a certain cost criteria. And they're not really evaluating what their alternatives available to them are. And so they're making poor choices. And when we look at some of the roles that we think we can help out on, and we don't get a chance to do that, and you see somebody's gone into it, you think that won't work out, that person's not got any SaaS experience, or they've not got the right domain expertise, or they've not worked in an organisation at that level of maturity, so they're not used to sort of problems and challenges that they might face on this growth journey. You think that won't work out, we would never put that person forward, and you look 6, 9, 12 months later and they've moved on, you think, knew that would be the case. And we see that an awful lot. And we've actually filled several roles recently where we found the person who's got to go in there and clear up that mess. And so whilst that's great for us to be able to help a customer out, it's not nice to see that impact on organisations that we really want to see grow and be successful. So that's something which is really avoidable, and I think that a lot of companies view recruiters negatively, understandably so. Most companies have had a bad experience at some point with a recruitment consultant, but there are lots of expert recruiters out there that do make a difference, that do add value, and through the power of their networks and their knowledge and their experience can help companies avoid all those hidden costs and avoid that false economy that I'm talking about. And if you're really not sure about how we do that, well, then I suggest you watch a video entitled Beyond the Fee, the true value of a specialist recruiter, which is hosted on our YouTube channel, or you can see it on everyday.com. Okay, I hope you found that useful. If you're one of those passive job seekers that wants that conversation, love to hear from you. If you're one of those founders of a startup or a scale-up that's having those sorts of problems, happy to talk to you about how we can help, no obligation. And if you just want to know what's going on in the market, well, nice to see you. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this, and you know where we are if you need us. Thank you.